But yeah, anyway, so okay, with that being said, I'll just give it a go. We've just been talking a bit about Malcolm, and today we are accompanied by Bren, who's a Chicago. What's even like? How do you say it? Chicagoer or
Chicago.
Oh, so I'm I played in Chicago. I guess it's more like a sh sound. But I'm
Okay.
actually from Charlottesville, Virginia. So it was about a 13-hour drive for me for that event.
That's
13
great.
hours. Whoa, that's a huge commitment. That's a huge commitment. So I already told them that we, as like the European community, was quite impressed that you managed to bring up a 60 plus players tournament on the latest MagicCon in Chicago. So we thought we'll just have a chat with you and ask you a few questions about the format and about the event and stuff like this. So
Yeah.
you came up with Malcolm. You just said that you drove 13 hours or you came by plane.
Oh, yeah. We made the not great decision to drive. So it was but we were there for the weekend, so it wasn't like the day of. We had to drive up, but yeah, it was a 13-hour trip
Wow,
uh up there and then back.
that's quite a commitment. So far, is this the biggest event that has taken place in the US regarding Duel Commander?
I believe so, and it's the first one that I've seen in like a US based like Magic or like Grand Prix level event that's had this as a side event.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this was the largest one, even though it was like 67 players to start the event. I was super excited to see that as like even an option at MagicCon.
As I said, it's really cool to see that. What do you think? Or what exactly did you guys get into Duel Commander after all?
Yeah, so when I got into Magic on the local level, it was around 2014. I actually thought it was a Percy Jackson card game around when Theros came out, and then my friends were like, "No, no, let's teach you how to play Magic so you don't make that mistake." But the way they taught me how to play, especially because it was oftentimes when we were meeting, it was just the two of us, was with French or Dual Commander.
Mm-hmm.
So it was the format that actually got me into Magic. Um, that I was surprised to find at a local level because as I was getting more and more into Magic and playing at like stores and stuff, like a lot of people hadn't really heard about it. And I think just because it was an outlet for like being a little bit more competitive in your like commander deck building, getting to do some of the more powerful stuff from like modern and legacy, and also not having to feel bad about the politics side of it when you like play a stack and like so it was a good like creative outlet too because building a deck around your commander in a more competitive way, it felt like a brewer's playground that we
I
could kind of just like build whatever we want.
Yeah, I totally agree to that, and especially like I had a similar story back in the days when I was playing multiplayer, and I felt like at some point you're always blamed for playing the good deck, and I
Yeah.
just want to play good Magic. I don't want to really get into the politics that much. And as you said, if you enjoy playing stacks, just go for it, as long as it wins the game.
I
That's
think I
Right.
think what you've described is basically the same path as I had into Magic, except that my format for that kind of started getting me out of playing Commander was Highlander, and then I moved to Darmstadt, which is where I'm still living now, and that's where the Dual Commander playing started. So that's interesting because from that time, I don't really remember Dual Commander, at least on MTG Top 8, having much of a presence
I think back in the days
in
it was not a
America.
category at all. Like when we're talking
To
2014.
2004, not 2014, but at least when I started, it was already a category, but you
Yeah,
never saw American tournaments.
yeah, that's true.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So what I know is at some point there was a you might be familiar with the structure of the rules committee, right? So there's the committee itself with the 5 voting members, and then there are regional coordinators like they have the position to make a connection between the committee itself and the communities they represent.
Sure. Yeah.
And at some point there was or there still is a regional coordinator for the US. To be honest, I'm not really sure for which part because America is quite a big country, or you have quite a lot of states. So The thing I've noticed recently, which might have gotten you and other people, I'm not saying back into it, but maybe catched your interest again, was there was another YouTuber playing with power, is the channel called, I think. This is usually a channel that's dedicated to CDH content, and they were playing Duel Commander. There's like I think it has quite a big American audience, like something around 90,000 subscribers or something. And that was, I think, the biggest spotlight Duel Commander got so far in terms of content creation. So do you think that animated some people to try the format and give it a chance?
Yeah, I think so. And also, I know Chicago was the most had the most people they've ever had at a MagicCon. It was like 12,000 people, I think.
Wow.
So
okay.
I know, like, for me, looking at like side events and stuff, that's like what's available to do while you're in Chicago, and then seeing Commander and seeing like Duel, like it has such like iconic name for a format that I think just like being like, oh, I can play Commander in a more like 1v1 setting, I think drew people to try it that weekend. Because there was a good chunk of people that were playing in their first tournament ever for Duel Commander while we were there.
Yeah, well, fair enough. I mean, at some point you have to start, but it's really cool that people even are interested. I can imagine if you say like 12,000 players. I've never been to a MagicCon so far, but it's not only playing. I think there are also all kinds of content creators, right, around
1,200,
Magic.
not 12,000.
Yes, and they brought a lot of artists of cards too to get like signatures and playmats done. So like I met Dan Frazier and Justine Jones while I was there, which was really, really cool.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's cool. 1,200. Okay, sorry, not 12.
Yeah.
Okay. Still lots of people.
No, I think it was 12,000 people over the weekend.
12,000 people. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was a big convention. Yeah.
Crazy.
What was the main event?
They had the Pro Tour was there, along with they did a big Standard Open, lots of Commander play and casual play. They did game nights live while we were there, and then of course like there was the preview panel that we talked about briefly a little bit earlier, just where they showcased like the next 4 months of Magic sets.
That must be awesome if you sit together in a hall or somewhere, and then they have like the official spoiler on screen, and you're present there. If it's the way I imagine, but
yeah, it was especially during the Modern Horizons part of the stream that like you hear like cheers and stuff when cards come up, and then I remember just like the like deep silence that happened when the new Emrakul was on screen, as everyone was just like trying to process what the card did. I was like, hold on, we gotta wait a moment to respond.
Okay, it's just crazy because I'm thinking about a different hobby like Counter-Strike. Samuel has been to one Counter-Strike event or even more of them, and it's a similar thing from what I expect. I've never been to something like this, but also like, well, let's not get into that. Let's get over to your metagame at that particular day. So
I was about to ask that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well. I think, considering you saying that that this was the first event for a lot of people, all of the lists that people brought seem well put together, well thought out, and don't seem to play many cards that would be considered off meta, which is different from my experience when you see locations or countries popping up on MTG Top 8 for, in quotes, the first time. You often see a sort of people playing the format for the first time in their LGS with 20 people because they have a lot of people, or it was popular that people wanted to try it out, and then you see sort of some very suboptimal deck lists being submitted, and it seems like everyone who made it into the top 8 of the event brought a deck that is pretty similar to what you would see in a European meta, which has been playing for, I would be guessing, a lot longer than a lot of the people playing at the MagicCon.
Pretty much 10 years now, I think. Came around 2013 or something, I guess. Not sure, maybe even earlier, but yeah.
So
yeah, So for the event, I would say there was like maybe 15 to 20 players that were that brought kind of just modified versions of their regular multiplayer deck, and it was like, oh, updated ban list. Let me just like swap a couple of the cards and see kind of what happens. But there was a good chunk of us that like MTG Top 8 is kind of like the internet famous for Duel Commander. So like those of us that were like have been interested in the format for a while. And I've got a pretty strong community locally that plays. I would say we have about 30 players, 35 players that are like regularly active for Duel Commander locally. That like we pretty much click refresh on MTG Top 8 every day, just to see kind of what new lists and stuff to borrow from. Especially Tony, who Tony Perry, who ended up winning the event. He's one of my local players too, and he's been playing the format a lot longer than I have. So for him, it was like, yeah, I found the Atraxa deck that I like playing, that borrowed a lot of stuff from online lists.
Yeah, and that's actually a pretty good choice to play. I think I'm just looking at his list. Looks very similar to Leo Facca's list. He's the one that currently holds the title for winning the biggest Duel Commander event ever.
Yeah, I think that's 100% where you got the list from.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very, very solid. If piloted well, you can win almost any game. Atraxa itself, it's quite interesting in terms of or how control decks have developed into something that is not only playing a threat at some point, controlling the game until that point, but also featuring some kind of unfair magic every now and then with the Dream Holes interaction. If you look at Airtie, you have the parallaxes that allow you to steal lands or steal cards from the opponent's hands. And apart from that, we've talked about this in the previous podcast, that it seems like all the decks these days tend to have an unfair aspect of Magic, since the usual fair Magic is pretty hard to get through with.
Yeah, the Slimefoot decks often also play the Phyrexian Altar.
Yes, and I mean also like just for the Slimefoot decks, it's not the altar itself, but like the reanimation ability, sacrificing Slimefoot and generating value by bringing back a Fury a second time or stuff like this is already good enough. Yeah, I'm just checking through the list. They look quite clean, as you said, Samuel. It's really cool. So you say you have around 30 players at your local community. Do you think do you organize some smaller events on your own, like with your LGS together or something like this?
Yeah. Also, can you guys still hear me? My computer's being weird.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So on our local level, we found that it's tough to get everyone that wants to play gathered at the same time. So we do kind of a league format where for about 6 weeks against an opponent each round for you to like find time to come in and play. And we have a couple rules advisors / judges on staff that would be available for like rules questions that come up. We do some smaller like 1-day events that usually have like 15 to 20 people. But for the league, that's where we usually end up with like the 30 plus, just because of like work schedules. It allows people to work around like what they need to so that they can play the format.
Oh, that's a cool idea. So is it online or also in paper? Or mainly in paper?
It's we use Melee for our pairings, and then we play in paper.
Oh, cool. It's the more enjoyable way, in my opinion, unless you use something like Spell Table or similar, or just by camera.
Yeah,
it's cool when you have an LGS that really supports the players in those sorts of things, and when you have an active community, you can often find people that have time during the week where they just pop by the store for an evening, and then you end up playing some games with people that are there without having to plan it for a long time.
True.
Yeah,
it's definitely a privilege. Okay, cool. Are there any questions left, Samuel?
Well, you're putting me on the spot.
I put you on the spot. I could also ask Bren if there's something he wants to add or something he wants to talk more about.
Yeah. My favorite format. I've been super excited to just like jump into kind of the creative deck building that comes with like choosing a commander and like working around it. and kind of like the tweaks and fine tuning that comes from that. Because Malcolm's been something I've been working on ever since Lost Caverns of Ixalan, and I didn't like. So it's been like months of me trying to like do incremental changes to it, let alone whatever deck comes next. Because that's always the exciting thing is that because Commander's the most popular format, there's always going to be legendary creatures and cards for us to try.
That's
yeah.
true. Yeah, that's the good part about all the massive prints, right? And the new sets, that we have something to be excited about, or something to look forward to. And most often, on average, there are 1 or 2 new legends with each, at least with each standard set that we have a look into. Like now talking about Ixalan, there are a couple of single includes. Then you said Malcolm is a command zone for sure. There's also how is this card called? The Orzhov 2/2 with Ward pay 3 life. Some Amalia or something like this. I don't know.
Oh yeah, the Explorer.
Yeah, exactly,
Commander.
exactly. That's also something people experiment with, and
I've seen a couple of Bartolome lists as well, the like aristocrats style black white sacrifice creature. So
it's pretty cool. I definitely agree on that part. I'm also looking forward for the next standard set already, since I think in terms of legendaries, Call of Mana has not brought that many updates.
But
I would agree. I added a couple cards for my list, but not in the command zone. The Lost in the Maze, I think, is my pick for part of the set, other than the Surveil lands, because I think the Surveil lands are really good too.
The surveillance are really good, right?
Impact in all decks, basically.
Yeah, that's true. It's omnipresent in most modern decks, and those are just really, really good. I like to play them in multicolor decks too. Lost in a Maze is an interesting card. I saw that in your list. Have you ever tried Parallax Tide? I think it's too powerful to not play it, and since you also feature the Stifle effects.
It's not in my list, but I definitely think it could be included. Yeah, that's one of the cards that was on my short list. Like, maybe not. I haven't tried the. Mainly, I hadn't play tested with the card going into Chicago, so I didn't want to try it in a big event.
Yeah, fair.
But it's definitely. Hello.
Hey, there you go.
There he is.
Now you're back.
I've swapped to my phone since my computer decided to not work.
Okay. So yeah, we were talking about your deck and that you didn't want to go with the Parallax Tide since you haven't had time.
I would definitely recommend playing it. I think Felix did play the deck a bit, and the most powerful draws always seemed like the ones where Parallax Tide happened. You lose 4 lands, and then a stifle or a Tishana's Tidebinder or a Tail's End happens, and your lands are just gone.
Yeah, and even without the Stifle, the tempo drawback due to stealing the lands is good enough to boost you ahead.
Yeah, and especially the draws where it's like I get to exhaustion multiple turns in a row. It's kind of feeling that vibe too, and I could definitely use more of those effects for the list.
Yeah, absolutely. Just as my personal last question, is there any big event planned in the next time anywhere in the US?
Yeah, not that I've seen. We have our league that just started up for us locally that has 30 players. So at the end of that, I'll be able to post those lists. But I'm hoping this is the first. I'm hoping that with the turnout that we had at the last event, that the next time we get a MagicCon or maybe even like a Star City event, since they've started to host more local events, that we can host more bigger Duel Commander.
Oh, that would be cool. Imagine having like real-time coverage from Star City games on Duel Commander with with professional shoutcasters. That would be insane.
That would be so cool.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, cool.
I think it's interesting refreshing MTG top 8 for lists. I've definitely had times where I've been hyped enough for the format to be doing that as well.
I mean, for me, especially on the local level, I mentioned that being on MTG top 8 is kind of the Duel Commander equivalent of internet famous. The fact that 3 of the people from my store made top 8 for MagicCon. It was Tony, myself, and Spencer was on Slimefoot and Squee. So it's like locally, we've been very hyped about just being like, oh, we're up there too.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys saw the selfies we were taking, or like our kind of like on Discord. Just all 8 of us that made top 8 were just so excited to just exist and be there and playing like competitive level Duel Commander.
I mean, it's a cool feeling. Like you have your deck, you put some time into it, you know what you're doing, and you achieved something on a tournament. And especially if it's like for the first time that you have like a bigger event at your side, it's definitely a special feeling. I can relate to that. Yeah. Okay, so in case people have questions regarding your Malcolm list or any other deck you play, I think you're on the international Discord, right?
Yes,
As
I'm
well.
on. I should be on the regular Duel Commander one, but also Duel Commander International Discord. If you want to talk lists in general, my next passion project is going to be the Lannis from the Clue set, which cares about clues and +1/+1 counters. It's going to be a blue-green list. I think that'll be really, really cool. So that'll be kind of the next list that I work on.
Interesting. I'm not, to be honest, not sure if I know the legendary you're just talking about, but to my excuse, there are too many sets. I'll just have to check later on Scryfall. Okay, cool.
There are definitely too many sets.
Yeah, absolutely. Good. Thanks a lot for joining us for this small talk. And yeah, if you have questions to Bren regarding Malcolm or anything else, then you can forward on any of the Discords. Are you also on all Discords? If not, that's that's the time to join. With that being said,
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome anytime. Looking forward to have you the next time you play even at a bigger event.
Yeah, we're aiming for triple digits next time. We'll see.
Yeah, that would be awesome. That would be awesome. We haven't done that yet in Germany here. We like our biggest event was I think like 64 players 2 years ago or something. We will get there at some point, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for listening, guys, and see you next time.
See you next time.